Salutations, respected viewers. I've been asked by one of my numberless adoring fans to make a video about Gibraltar and the implications of Brexit for Gibraltar. In case you don't know, Gibraltar is a peninsula off the coast of Spain, but it doesn't belong to Spain. And it's only about 6 kilometers long, 2 kilometers wide, something like that. I've been there. What a fortunate place it is. Anyway, so it gets its name from Gibraltar, as in Tariq's mountain in Arabic. I don't know what the history was prior to that, but the Moors, that's to say North African Muslims, they were there when they invaded Spain in, I think, the 8th century AD, and so that was that. Obviously, Spain didn't exist as Spain until 1700, in fact. So the people who were proto-Spanish, I suppose, the several kingdoms that were in Spain, they were defeated by the Moors and subjugated and pushed out in some cases and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, about 700 years later, there's a Reconquista, and the Spanish came back down. They defeated these North African Muslims who were then either forced out or forced to convert in 1492. So Spain was several kingdoms, but there were the Catholic monarchs, Ferdinand and Isabella, and they ruled these several kingdoms, but Spain wasn't officially one realm until 1700. Anyway, so we often just called it Spain for short. So Spain was obviously a Catholic country, and the United Kingdom was a Protestant one, or previous to that, Scotland, England, won't go into it really, Wales, Ireland were a Catholic majority, but the Protestants ruled the roost. Anyway, Spain and the United Kingdom, prior to that, England, Scotland, Wales, they clashed a lot, religious affairs, but also maritime trade. Won't go into it. The War of Spanish Succession kicked off in 1700. In 1704, the British took control of Gibraltar. Of course, the British weren't officially British until 1707, the Act of Union, but there we are. So they wrested it from Spain. So that conflict came to an end. There was the Treaty of Utrecht, signed in the Netherlands in 1713. And Spain ceded Gibraltar in perpetuity to the United Kingdom. However, Spain was to have first refusal. If the United Kingdom ever chose to withdraw, they couldn't just give it away or sell it. They had to first of all offer it to the Spanish. If the Spaniards said no, then the UK could dispose of it as they wished. This treaty also said that no Mohammedan or Jew would ever be permitted to live in Gibraltar. And another title of that treaty concerned the right to trade in the human species from Africa, slaves. So some people say, well, this treaty really needs to be thrown out because it's obviously rebarbative. We wouldn't tolerate such gross injustices anymore. Now, we could, of course, sever the unacceptable bits about religious discrimination, about treating people as chattel, and then just keep the good bits about the treaty. But there we are. So the British built up a military base there. It was very useful. It's at this choke point in the Mediterranean, where the Mediterranean is only 11 miles across between Europe and Africa. So it's very useful in various conflicts. What else about Gibraltar? So Spaniards who didn't like the situation in their country, Jewish Spaniards, for example, came across and lived there, more liberal Spaniards, and they became Gibraltarians, became British subjects. So I've been to Gibraltar, and obviously they're signed up in Spanish as well as English, and most people are fluent in both languages. And you meet some people with a typically Spanish name and blah blah blah. And I said, he said, I'm from here. I said, oh, so you're Spanish? He said, you and me outside, jokingly, as though we're going to fight. So he said, okay, yes, I do have Spanish ancestry completely, but I'm a Gibraltarian. So they're very clear about that, and they will still adopt and practice some aspects of Spanish culture, but they regard themselves as Gibraltarian and indeed British. So it's a multi-ethnic enclave, and they don't reject the Spanish culture and all that, but they just don't want to be citizens of Spain. So so Gibraltar and got on all right with Spain for much of the 20th century. You may know that from about 1936 to 1975, Spain was ruled by a dictator. Well, his title was El Caudillo, the leader, Francisco Bahamonde Franco. And for a while, in the 60s, he closed the border with Gibraltar. It was only reopened again in the late 80s, trying to starve Gibraltar out. So it had to be supplied by sea and by air. And I know someone who's in the RAF, that's the British Air Force, who was there at the time, said, in some ways it's wonderful because it had a splendid sense of community. There are only about 10,000 people. We all knew each other. We used to sail around. We used my yacht to sail to Morocco and Portugal. But that didn't manage to shut down Gibraltar, and a lot of Moroccans came over and started to work in Gibraltar. The United Kingdom had high unemployment at the time. I don't know why some more unemployed British people didn't go out there to do work. So we know the European Union was founded, the UK joined in 1973, Spain joined in 1985, and then there was this vexatious issue of Gibraltar. So Spain would quite want it back. And I'm told that the Treaty of Utrecht only concerns certain parts of Gibraltar, and the British have more than they should have. So Spain is often trying to blackguard the Gibraltarians, say, oh, it's an entrepot for drug trading and blah, blah, blah. I'm not sure that that's true. I mean, there might be some drugs that are smuggled through there. Drugs are smuggled through every country, particularly Spain, actually. So I don't think Gibraltar is especially bad on this one, but anything to try and say Gibraltar is bad and we need to have it back and blah, blah, blah. So I went to a talk by Peter Caruana years ago when he was chief minister, and saying that the Labour government at the time was in discussion with Spain, trying to satisfy Spain. But Caruana said this is unacceptable. What about democracy? They held a referendum in Gibraltar, and it was a huge vote for staying linked to the United Kingdom, something like 99%. It's hard to believe that such a high vote, it was democratic, but it really was. Obviously, the pro-Spanish side, they've got complete access to the media. I've never heard anyone say the votes were bogus at all, or that valid votes were discounted. So there we are. And Mr. Caruana said the trouble is, Spain will try and thwart us in everything we do. That we couldn't have telecommunications routed via Spain, even though it's closer. And we want to join any sporting or cultural competition or association. Spain, already being a member, will veto us, so we're not allowed to join. So there they are. But they're represented in the European Parliament as part of this South West England constituency. So now the UK is leaving the EU, and Spain had sort of let sleeping dogs lie with regard to Gibraltar for the last few years. But in order for the United Kingdom to get a deal with the European Union, some sort of trade deal, the Spanish are upping the ante. You want a trade deal? All right, you've got to give us this and that with regard to Gibraltar, not the whole thing. So obviously, most Spanish people feel very strongly about this issue. It's a tiny amount of land, and almost nobody there wants to belong to Spain, and you can be a Spanish citizen and live there if you want. I thought maybe we'll just get loads of Spanish people to move there and then vote to join Spain. Would be the obvious thing to do. So I thought the UK should make some concessions to Spanish feeling, a SOP. I'm not sure, is this saying that Spanish is a co-official language, or agreeing to fly the Spanish flag there, or agreeing never to have nuclear weapons there, or something like that, or even giving Spain some money. I thought when Spain was down on her uppers about 10 years ago, offering £1 billion, so they probably would have said no, so that's derisory. But what else can you do? Some sort of landing fee. Anybody who arrives by plane is going to pay £1, that's going to go to Spain, and the Spanish can interpret that as rent or compensation, or however they want. Something so the Spanish don't feel humiliated about this. That's what I would do. I don't see the status of Gibraltar changing at all. And actually, Spain didn't push particularly hard on this one to get something out of the United Kingdom with regard to Gibraltar. And the hypocrisy is just flagrant, because from Gibraltar you can see Ceuta and Melilla, these two Spanish exclaves on the coast of Morocco. So they belong to Spain, they've done for centuries. And the Spanish say, oh, well, that's different because we've had them since about 1500, and you've only had Gibraltar since 1704. I don't see what the moral difference is. So those territories are completely Spanish. I totally accept that. But they're on the African mainland. The other thing is a bit of millstone around Spain's neck, because there's a huge amount of illegal immigration through there. It's a lot easier to cross over by land than it is by sea. I don't know if they've got the border fence all of the way. And so once people get in to Ceuta and Melilla, they're Spain's responsibility. Are these people asylum seekers? They've got to be processed. If they're rejected, they'll be sent back. And it's very expensive and time-consuming. Because remember, Spain used to rule a lot of Morocco, the northern coast of Morocco, for centuries, right up until, when did they give it back? Was it the 1920s? Was it even later? And Tangier was an international zone. Well, that's enough about Gibraltar.